I'd like to introduce you to my grandmother. Say hello. I'd like to introduce you to her folks, my great-grandparents. Say hello. I'd like to introduce you to the rest of the crew. Only problem is, I don't know who they are. Their faces in a picture that I've seen for the last 50 years of my life. This picture hangs in my parents' front hall. It is the sum total of memories that I have of a family that I never met, know very little about, and have only the scantest of stories to be able to tell about. They are the faces to which I can put no names, and they represent a history that I, frankly, will never know. I'm the first generation of parents that came post-World War II to Australia. They came as many migrants did. They left a past behind to make a future. They brought with them very little. They brought with them mementos, and they brought with them a conversation that they did not want to have. And they came to the furthest place on the planet that they could find, Australia. They made a life in Melbourne, and they brought up children to understand the value of a future, where a past for them was something that they didn't want to recall. This picture holds those memories for me, with no conversation and no names attached to them. It's one of the very, very few pieces of information I have about where my ancestors came from. The other piece of information that's been flying around in our family are documents which were put together after the Second World War. They were transit documents, documents that would get my parents out of Europe and across the world, whether that be to Australia, to America, or to Canada. The reality is that on this document, there is an address. The address is 12 Tsagunka. That address and those faces represent a history that I thought I would never know. The opportunity came last year for us to travel to Poland. It was something that we'd never wanted to do before. My big sister came to me and said to me, "I think the time's right." And of course, as you always do, really as I never did, you listen to your big sister and you take her advice. So within 6 weeks, we'd packed up our bags and we were headed overseas. The question was that we came from a town called Włocławek. Anyone heard of Włocławek? Somebody. Who's a somebody? Oh, one. Nobody else on earth, apart from Włocławek people, have ever heard of it. We should talk after. Włocławek is about 2 hours, give or take an hour or 3, depending on the traffic, from Warsaw. It's a long way out. We began to look for this address, 12 Tsagunka. And we found our way to this corner, the corner where my memories began, the corner of Tsagunka and Krolovac. There'll be a quiz afterwards, hope you can say that. This was the corner at which history began to unfold for me. At this corner, we looked down the street and we imagined a street that was 80 years old, where 80 years ago our ancestors walked, where they talked, where they lived, and where they imbibed on the air and each other. Down this street, we continued walking until we came to that famous address for us, that mythical, only ever written about piece of paper, which had 12 Tsagunka, and we arrived at the front forecourt of that address. This is the old homestead. Welcome. This is the place that I had talked about, thought about, seen in my memory, but actually never ever thought that I would see in my real life. This is 12 Tsagunka. My sister and I sitting on this doorstep, as the family did 70 years ago. It was incredibly powerful sitting in that spot at that moment. What I realized, that I never had realized before, was that I was so full of the past that I had no room for the future. I saw these people in their photos. I saw these addresses on pieces of paper. But I never really had an opportunity to try and celebrate who the people were, what this address might have meant. For me, they were distant memories and often attached to unkind thoughts. It was up to me to release that past so that I could move past it and move into the future. And that was the joy that I found sitting at 12 Tsagunka. The ability to let go of the past, take the best of it with me into tomorrow, and understand that these were living, breathing human beings. What we did from there on was to celebrate their life, understand where they worked, how they worked, who and where they were, and what they did. The reality was that that was the future that we were looking at. For me, it was a question of unlearning the past and unlearning the future. Because what I had done was to carry baggage with me for my entire life, and that baggage filled me up so completely that I had no room to think differently. I had no room to act differently. It was a matter of unlearning all of that before I could refill who I was and what I was, and move forward into a new future that was not better or worse, but just was different, was more appreciative to tomorrow's time, more appreciative to who I'd become by what I'd learned and the journey I'd been on. It's the journey that you and I go on every single day. It is the journey that we fellow futurists take each other on, because each and every one of you is indeed a futurist. Each and every one of you makes a decision at this moment for what you think the future might look like. And with that decision and that thinking, you pack your bags and you move forward. I describe it to my clients as listening to yesterday, but speaking to tomorrow. Listening to yesterday, but speaking to tomorrow. Too often in life, we look at what we have done before, we look at the technology that's been around before, we look at what we've achieved before, and we believe that we're standing on the summit of what we can do and what we believe. And you and I know, as these wonderful human being creatures that we are, that that's not the truth. We know that the world is forever changing. We know that today we do the best with what we have, who we are, and what we know. But we also know that tomorrow we might know a little better, have a little different, do a little more, and the future will change for us. I look at my children today, and I wonder about the world that they're inheriting. Their world is a very different one from mine. My world was linear. When I left school, I was given this dream by society. I was told that when you finish school, move on to a profession, a vocation, find a job, just get out of the house. The reality for that was that whatever that career was, it would see me through my entire life. That employer would give me promotion, would give me more money as the years went on, would eventually give me a golden watch at the end of my retirement, and would pass me over to my wife, who would pray to God that I would only survive 10 years or so, because God knows she needed the rest after that. That was society that we knew then. The sum total of knowledge was what we could find in an encyclopedia. When I handed in assignments, it wasn't plagiarism to go to the newest encyclopedia, the yearbook, and pull out the information from that. And that was what we knew to be true. You and I now pull out these magical boxes out of our pockets, our handbags, and our briefcases, and we interrogate the world, and what is new is available to us right now. In this world that my children are moving into, they will have 6 careers and 14 jobs. Not because they're lazy, not because they can't hold down a job, but because that's what society requires of them. If they are going to upskill themselves, if they are going to better themselves, then it's unusual to find one employer that wants to see them through all of that. The reality for them is a very different world to the one that I grew up in. Not better, not worse, just different. If we're going to educate them, if we're going to give them the skills that they need, I would argue that the 3 R's that we talked about for so long are not as relevant as they were before. That doesn't mean we should forget them. It just means we might have to include other elements. We might have to be collaborative. We might have to include communication. We might have to include creative problem solving, because these are skills that they're going to move into over time. You know, between now and 2030, we're going to have to find 600 million more jobs across the planet to keep us all and our increasing population in work. What we have now is not going to allow that to happen. What you and I create out of the future might, but we are going to have to leave behind some baggage. We are going to have to leave behind some of that luggage of what we knew, of what we held so sacred. We're going to have to release some of that to move forward into the future so that we can, in fact, create these jobs that you and I will need. Our society requires it. Our life requires it. Our existence requires it. We talk about health, and we know that now we're moving into a wellness phase where over the next decade, you and I will not be as concerned about fixing ourselves as we will be about maintaining ourselves. We will live till 100. My children and great-grandchildren will live to 120 and 150 in relatively good health. The world of tomorrow will see many of the ailments we have today tamed, as we've tamed polio and tuberculosis. But we will bring on new horizons of aged care. It will include robotics. It will include all sorts of nanotechnologies. There's much on the horizon. But again, you and I have to be willing to see the betterment in those, to take the best of what we have and mix it in with the best of what we want out of tomorrow. We currently have 2,700 people over the age of 80 in Australia. By the time we get to 2055, we're going to have 78,000 people over the age of 100 living in Australia, looking for another 20 or 50 years of existence. How will our society cope with that? How will it offer the sustenance? How will it offer the intrigue, the intellect, the daily well-being for a society that is much larger in number and also much older than we've ever seen before? We currently stand on the cusp of 5 generations working together for the first time ever since we've been put on this planet. We're watching baby boomers disappear out of the boardroom over the next 5 to 10 years. We're watching Gen X, Y, Zs and As come into the boardroom over the next 10 to 15 years. The world is significantly different. Again, not better or worse, just different. Are we prepared for those differences, or are we carrying baggage through with us? The world of food is one of those things, as is water, that you and I will need to be concerned about. The world of food, if we are going to feed everybody that we're about to put on this planet, and we are seeing a huge explosion in numbers, is something that we need to be concerned about. We know that we have to increase our food production by 30% in order to have enough food to feed everybody by the time we get to 2030. We currently have less land to farm on. We have less water to use. We have less people working in agriculture. We have less of everything, but require more than we have ever done before. How will we do that? We're seeing robotics come into agriculture that can seed, can pick, can pack, can do all kinds of things in the field. We're seeing 3D printing of food. We're seeing the possibility of taking stem cells from the shoulder of a cow and turning that into a viable hamburger that you and I will eat. These things are all on a continuum, as is everything in the future. We should never look at it as a baby in bathwater. We're not looking to totally wholesale replace what we currently know. We're looking to get rid of the inefficiencies, those things that don't serve us well anymore. They did in their time, they don't anymore. We're looking to replace those with new thinking, with new energies, with new innovation. That's our journey into the future. Understanding what it is we leave behind, what it is we no longer need because it has served its purpose, and what do we move forward on. Otherwise, these challenges are not things that you and I will be able to meet. The future is really the most incredible place. It offers us the opportunity to grow, to enrich ourselves, and to create a world that we want. A world which includes people, cities, and cities are growing tremendously. We know that within the next few decades, by 2050, we will have 4.3 billion people living in cities across the globe. That's 2/3 of all of our population. We're currently sitting at around 1/3. How will we manufacture those cities? Where will people live? What transportation will they use? Will there be autonomous cars, cars that drive themselves? What work will they be doing? How will we live as individuals? How will we live as families? What interconnection will we need? These are all questions that we must find answers to in the next little while if we are going to grow the cities that are going to house these populations. These figures are estimates, but they are fairly close to the things that you and I will see. We cannot walk into the future just armed with what we currently do, have, and know. We must forever be looking across the horizon. We must forever be looking to see the unseen. That's the purpose of us being together. The purpose of humanity is always to look forward. It is, in fact, what we are physiologically wired to do. We understand and always have through all the millennium that we need to change. The weather changes, our conditions change. We need to move land. We need to find places to eat, places to sleep. And we did that, regardless of whether we had apps or technology to lead the way. We did that thousands of years. We will do that thousands of years from now. We must continue the journey of tomorrow. We must walk away from the platitudes, the things that we believe to be sacred. Pluto is no longer a planet. Things that we believed once to be true are no longer necessarily true. That doesn't mean we should forget everything. It does mean, though, that we need to release space to do it. The future is incredible. It offers us every opportunity. It is full of people, though. Not for a moment should we think about technology as filling that space, because it will be people that do. People will use technology as they have always done, as a tool. They will use it for their betterment, hopefully. But technology in and of itself is benign. It offers nothing until we put it in the hands of a person. It's up to us to make sense, to make purpose out of it. If we are going to grow our families, if we are going to grow our cities, if we are going to make the future what we want it to be, then it is in our hands, it is of our making. You and I must grapple with that. Don't allow other people to paint that picture for you. There is no default in the future. There's no X marks the spot. There is no finality to it. It is a constant journey that you and I must be on. That's the reality of tomorrow. If we go back to my family of 120 years ago, family is always at the core. People are always at the core. But what people choose to do, the world that they live in, the things that they engage themselves with, the things that become important to them, those things change over time. I welcome you into my family of today. I look forward to you joining us, to looking what you make of the future, because the future resides inside your heart, your soul, and your mind. It is from there that I want you to reach into what tomorrow can be. Find the possibilities. Release yourself of the baggage that holds you back, the anchor that doesn't move you forward. Understand what's important, what you must take with you, and forever be looking at tomorrow's landscape, asking yourself the question, am I listening to yesterday and speaking to tomorrow? I wish you the most incredible journey into the future. May it exceed your every expectation of it. And I look forward to seeing each and every one of you again in the very near future.